The grand ballroom of Ashcombe Manor shimmered under hundreds of glistening chandeliers, casting a warm golden light over the elegantly dressed guests. Laughter mingled with the soft strains of violins, filling the air with an intoxicating blend of joy and expectation. Ladies in exquisite gowns swirled about like delicate flowers, their laughter like chiming bells, while gentlemen in tailored coats displayed an air of confidence that echoed through the opulent space. Yet amid the splendor, a cloud of uncertainty hovered over one soul. Lady Isadora Pelham stood near the entrance, her heart racing as she took in the lavish surroundings. The fabric of her forest green dress clung to her figure, a contrast to the more elaborate garments of her peers, who floated effortlessly across the polished floor. With every stolen glance, she felt like a stranger in a world that seemed to thrive on the glittering pretense of wealth and power. Her dark hair, swept back in soft curls, framed a face that was both determined and vulnerable, and her bright hazel eyes darted warily from one group to another. Isadora was known for her strong will, the kind that often set her apart from the other debutantes. She had no desire to play the part of a demure wallflower. She wanted to be seen for who she truly was. However, the whispers behind her back and the sidelong glances told her a different story, one of judgment based on her lesser social standing. The daughter of a country squire, her family's wealth paled in comparison to the vast fortunes of the lords and ladies surrounding her, and she had long learned to navigate the world with a cautious heart. The rumors of the night began to settle around her like a thick fog. The illustrious Duke of Ashcombe was in attendance. His name carried a weight of both reverence and disdain, known for his aloof demeanor and reputation as a heartbreaker, a figure of ambition and charm. Men admired him while women swooned, yet Isadora felt an inexplicable pull towards the mystery he embodied. He seemed to be both a glittering jewel and a perilous cliff, and curiosity gnawed at her insides like a persistent mouse. As the evening wore on, the ballroom pulsed with life, and amid the swirling dancers, Isadora caught her first glimpse of the Duke. He stood at the far end, his tall figure clad in navy, the fabric hugging his broad shoulders. His dark hair fell in soft waves, framing a face that was both handsome and brooding. Sharp cheekbones accentuated his striking features, and his piercing blue eyes scanned the room, seemingly indifferent to the attention he commanded. Isadora felt her breath hitch, her heart fluttering in her chest like a trapped bird. Then, as if feeling her gaze, he turned slightly, and their eyes locked for the briefest moment. Time stood still. His expression shifted, just for an instant, the aloof mask cracking, revealing a flicker of something deeper. But then it was gone, replaced by the cool detachment that was so characteristic of him. Isadora's pulse quickened, her cheeks flushing crimson at the unexpected connection. Was it merely an illusion crafted by the light and laughter surrounding them? Or did he truly see her in that moment? "Lady Isadora, over here!" The call of her friend, Marianne, broke the spell. The young woman waved enthusiastically from across the room, her excitement palpable. Isadora offered a weak smile, torn between the intoxicating allure of the Duke and the familiarity of those who knew her. Feeling overwhelmed, she took a step back, retreating toward the quieter corners of the ballroom. As she wandered through the clusters of guests, she overheard snippets of conversations that danced above the music, discussions of bets on the Duke's next romantic conquest, and whispered predictions of whom he might choose as his latest interest. "Surely he would never look at someone like her," one young lady remarked, her voice dripping with condescension. Isadora's heart sank. "There's a certain charm in his heartlessness, don't you think? He's never one to settle." With each word, doubts piled upon her, suffocating her spirit. She knew well that she was an outsider looking in, a mere shadow among the brilliant lights of society. Yet, as the evening progressed, Her curiosity about the Duke ignited a flicker of determination within her. She would uncover the truth behind the facade of the Duke of Ashcombe, and perhaps in doing so, she could find a way to bridge the vast chasm of their worlds. Just then, as if summoned by her thoughts, she caught sight of him again, moving through the crowd with a fluid elegance. He seemed to glide across the ballroom, his presence drawing the gaze of all who surrounded him. Isadora's heart raced as she followed him with her eyes, intrigued by his enigmatic aura. Suddenly she noticed a pair of gentlemen huddled nearby, their expressions conspiratorial as they spoke in hushed tones. Isadora leaned in, straining to hear their words. "He is troubled, you know," one murmured. "There's more to the Duke than his reputation suggests, a family secret that weighs heavily on him." The other nodded, eyes darting toward Ashcombe. "That's why he keeps everyone at a distance. He doesn't want anyone to know of his struggles." Isadora's breath caught in her throat. The aloof Duke, known for breaking hearts, was himself wrestling with an unseen burden. In that moment, she felt a rush of empathy for him, mingled with a newfound determination to learn more. As the ball continued its lively cadence around her, she found herself at a crossroads, heart thrumming with the thrill of the chase. The night held secrets yet to be uncovered, and Lady Isadora Pelham, with her insecurities and daring spirit, would not shy away from the shadows of the Duke's past. Before we continue with Isadora's journey into the enigmatic world of the Duke, if you're enjoying this tale of unexpected connections amidst the laughter and music, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let us see what happens next. The music swelled and ebbed like the tide, a backdrop to the flickering candles and hushed whispers that drifted through the ballroom. Isadora found herself retreating to the fringes, feeling the weight of the world's expectations pressing down on her. Her heart still raced from her fleeting connection with the Duke, but the thrill was quickly overshadowed by the sharp pang of insecurity. She leaned against the cool marble of a column, taking a moment to collect her thoughts as the laughter of the other guests echoed in her mind like a distant memory. As she stood absorbing the atmosphere, Isadora noticed a small group of gentlemen clustered together, their voices low but clear enough to penetrate the veil of gaiety. She strained to hear their conversation, her curiosity piqued. "Love is a folly, I tell you," one man scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. "The Duke has no time for such nonsense." "Precisely," another chimed in, a hint of laughter in his voice. "He's far too devoted to his pursuits of power and prestige. Romance is best left to the fools." Isadora's heart sank as she recognized the voice of the Duke among them, his words confirming the cold reputation that had swirled around him like the mist of a winter's morn. "The notion of love is for the naive," he declared, his voice smooth and unwavering. "It only leads to ruin. Better to remain detached, to wield power, not sentiment." A chill ran down Isadora's spine, and she pressed her back against the column as if it could shield her from the truth of his statement. In that moment, the flicker of attraction she had felt for him dimmed like a candle's flame beneath a gust of wind. How could a man so captivating harbor such disdain for a feeling she had always yearned to experience? Even as she grappled with her disappointment, a nagging voice in her head urged her to reconsider her feelings. Did her own heart betray her desire for the very thing he dismissed? Was it foolish to dream of a love that could transcend the boundaries of their disparate worlds? The question echoed in her mind, intertwining with the melodies that filled the ballroom as she watched couples dance, their movements fluid and joyous. "Isadora," a familiar voice broke through her reverie. Marianne appeared at her side, her face flushed with excitement. "You must come dance. The Duke is watching." The mention of him sent a jolt through her, and she turned towards the center of the room, where the Duke stood, a silent observer amidst the revelry. He was engaged in conversation, yet his gaze drifted occasionally across the room, landing briefly on her. The intensity of his stare sent her heart racing anew, igniting a conflict within her. How could someone so scornful of love captivate her so thoroughly? "I cannot," she replied, shaking her head. her voice barely above a whisper. "Not now." Marianne frowned, her brow furrowing in concern. "But why? Everyone is having such a wonderful time. You mustn't let his reputation deter you." Isadora looked away, her thoughts swirling like the gowns that twirled on the dance floor. "It's just," she began, hesitating as she searched for the right words. "What if he truly believes what they say? What if I am just another face in the crowd to him?" Marianne placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then you must show him that you are more than that. Confront him, Isadora. Find out for yourself." The idea sent a tremor of apprehension coursing through her. Confront the Duke? The very thought made her pulse quicken. But the challenge also stirred something deep within, a flicker of defiance. Perhaps Marianne was right. Perhaps it was time to step out of the shadows of her insecurities and into the light of possibility. As the music swelled again, Isadora took a deep breath, the reality of her decision settling over her like a shroud. With renewed determination, she turned to face the Duke, who remained a striking figure at the edge of the crowd. His indifference seemed to wane as he caught her eye once more, and she felt her heart race with an unsettling mixture of fear and excitement. "Will you wait for me, Marianne?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Of course," her friend replied, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Isadora moved forward, each step echoing like a drumbeat in her chest. As she approached the Duke, the chatter of the ballroom faded into a distant murmur, and all that existed was the space between them. His expression was inscrutable as she drew near, and for a moment she faltered, questioning her resolve. "Your Grace," she called softly, taking a deep breath as she stepped into his light. He turned to her, surprise flickering in those piercing blue eyes, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. "Lady Isadora," he replied, his voice smooth yet guarded. "What brings you here?" "I wish to speak with you," she stated, her heart pounding as she forced herself to meet his gaze. "Speak?" he echoed, a hint of amusement dancing on his lips. "What could you possibly want to discuss with a heartless nobleman?" Isadora swallowed hard, the weight of her own emotions heavy on her shoulders. "I wish to know your thoughts on love," she said, daring to step closer. His expression shifted, intrigue mingling with caution. "Love?" he repeated, skepticism lacing his voice. "Why would you care for such a fragile concept?" In that moment, Isadora realized she had embarked upon a path fraught with uncertainty. Yet she felt more alive than ever. The confrontation was not merely about his disdain, but about her own desires and the courage to seek the truth. She took a steadying breath, prepared to delve into the depths of his heart, even if it meant facing the darkness within. In the fabric of that evening, as the music swirled and laughter echoed, Lady Isadora Pelham stood at the precipice of a revelation, one that could alter the course of her heart forever. The evening air felt electric as Isadora approached the Duke, her heart thundering in her chest. The other guests swirled around them, laughter and music creating a tapestry of sound that seemed to fade into the background. Focused solely on him, she sensed an invisible barrier between them, like a chasm she was determined to bridge. "Your Grace," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves. He turned to her, his expression a mask of polite interest, but she could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes at her boldness. "Is it truly your belief that love is folly?" The Duke studied her, a hint of amusement dancing in his gaze. "Lady Isadora," he replied, his voice smooth yet laced with condescension. "Love is an indulgence, one that leads to nothing but heartache. Power and ambition are far more reliable companions." His words stung, and she refused to back down. "But what of joy? What of connection? Are we to live our lives devoid of those experiences simply because they may come with pain?" She felt her cheeks flush with passion, feeling invigorated by the confrontation. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her fervor. "I see you are quite the philosopher in the making," he remarked, a subtle challenge hidden in his tone. "Yet, I would argue that joy is fleeting. Power, however, is eternal." Isadora crossed her arms, a gesture of defiance. "And what is power without someone to share it with? Have you never longed for a genuine connection, one that transcends status and wealth?" For a moment, the Duke's expression flickered. Was it vulnerability? Before he masked it beneath his stoic facade. "I have learned that such connections can lead to ruin," he admitted, his voice dropping to a near whisper, as if fearing the very words he spoke. "I have lost someone dear to me, due to my own blind ambition. It is better to stay detached." The revelation hit Isadora like a gust of wind. The Duke, so often portrayed as a cold-hearted figure, had experienced loss. Her heart softened, the walls of her previous judgment beginning to crumble. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said gently, sensing the pain that laced his words. "But surely, it is worth the risk to love and be loved in return, even with the potential for heartache." He straightened, the mask of indifference slipping back into place. "You speak as if you have never tasted the bitterness of betrayal," he countered, his voice regaining its earlier edge. "Or perhaps you are simply naive enough to think love is a game to be played without consequence." "Perhaps it is you who are naive," she challenged, emboldened by his dismissive tone. "To think that life can be lived without embracing its full spectrum. Yes, love can bring pain, but it can also inspire us to become better, to elevate ourselves beyond mere ambition." The Duke studied her, his expression inscrutable. "You are a curious creature, Isadora Pelham. Most women would not dare to speak so boldly to me." He seemed genuinely intrigued, a spark of something in his eyes that was more than mere amusement. "And yet here I am," she replied, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "Perhaps you should reconsider your stance on love, Your Grace. It may very well be the missing piece in your carefully constructed life." The tension between them crackled like the last embers of a fire, and in that moment, Isadora felt a shift. The Duke's gaze held hers, a silent acknowledgement that their worlds were colliding in unexpected ways. "Lady Isadora," he said at last, the formality of his title feeling oddly intimate in the context of their exchange. "You have given me much to ponder. Perhaps I have misjudged you and the nature of desire." "Perhaps," she echoed, her heart racing. The atmosphere around them felt charged, alive with possibilities. She had stepped off the precipice of doubt and into the realm of courage, and the Duke's gaze suggested he had been affected too. Just then, a loud burst of laughter from nearby guests broke their moment, and the Duke's expression momentarily hardened into that familiar mask of indifference. Isadora's heart sank slightly, the whirling emotions of their conversation swirling into a fog of uncertainty. Did he truly mean what he had said, or was he merely toying with her? "You should return to your friends," he said, his voice now cool, like a breath of winter air. "I have business to attend to." Isadora felt a pang of disappointment, but refused to let it show. "And I must not keep you from it," she replied, trying to mask the vulnerability that threatened to spill over. "But remember, Your Grace, love is not a folly. It is the very essence of our humanity." With that, she turned to leave, a mix of triumph and apprehension coursing through her veins. As she walked away, she glanced back to see him watching her, his expression unreadable. The connection they had forged, however fleeting, left her breathless. In the depths of her heart, Isadora sensed something had shifted. She had challenged him, and in doing so, had uncovered a glimpse of the man beneath the Duke's hardened exterior. The dance between them was far from over, and with each step forward, she felt more entangled in the web of their fates. Yet as she merged back into the crowd, Isadora knew she had ignited a spark, one that could either light the path ahead or consume them both in flames. Uncertainty loomed, but she was ready to face it, emboldened by the courage she had found within herself and the mystery that was the Duke of Ashcombe. As the laughter from nearby guests faded into an uneasy silence, Isadora felt a sudden twitch of anxiety ripple through her. The Duke's gaze lingered on her, but the moment was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a familiar figure. Her younger sister, Clara, rushed into the ballroom, her cheeks flushed and eyes wide with distress. The joviality of the event seemed to dim as Isadora instinctively stepped toward her sister, concern tightening her chest. "Isadora!" Clara exclaimed, her voice trembling. "We must leave, now." "What on earth is the matter?" Isadora asked, her heart racing as she glanced at the Duke, who observed the unfolding drama with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Clara's gaze darted around the room, as if fearing unseen eyes watching their every move. "It's the scandal. They're saying terrible things about me." "I didn't mean to. I was just trying to help." A rush of protectiveness flooded Isadora's veins. "Help with what?" she demanded, gripping Clara's arm gently but firmly, urging her to confide in her. "I was talking to Lord Ashford, and he mentioned something about a wager." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And now they're saying I have been—" "Wager?" Isadora interrupted, her pulse quickening at the implication. "What sort of wager?" Clara turned her face away, ashamed. "They think I'm involved in something sordid, Isadora. I swear to you, it's not true." The atmosphere felt stifling as whispers began to swirl around them. Isadora's protective instincts kicked in, her mind racing. "We need to address this," she said decisively, her voice steady. "We can't let this tarnish our family's reputation. We must confront whoever has started these rumors." "But how can we? They'll only laugh at us," Clara protested, her voice quaking. "Leave that to me," Isadora replied, her mind already strategizing. "I will speak to Lord Ashford. If he has started this, he will hear the truth from me." The Duke's presence loomed behind them, and Isadora turned to him, her expression resolute. "Your Grace, I hope you understand the gravity of this situation. My sister is being unfairly accused, and we must take action." The Duke folded his arms, his brow furrowing as he pondered her words. "It's a precarious situation indeed. Society can be merciless, especially toward young women. But what do you plan to say to Lord Ashford? He is not known for his sense of honor." Isadora's heart pounded. "I will appeal to his sense of decency," she replied, although doubt nagged at her. "It is a risk I must take. Your courage is commendable," he said, a flicker of admiration softening his stern features. "But know this, power is often wielded through manipulation. You will need a plan." "Then help me," Isadora urged, her heart racing at the thought of enlisting his assistance. "You have influence. If you stand with us, it may sway others to listen." His gaze intensified, a storm of emotions brewing beneath the surface. "You wish for my aid? After everything I have said about love and ambition, I wish for your support as a fellow noble, Your Grace," she insisted, her determination unwavering. "This is about safeguarding my sister's future. I cannot let her suffer for the wickedness of others." A silence fell between them as he considered her plea. Suddenly, the sounds of laughter and music faded away, leaving only the weight of the moment hanging in the air. "Very well," he finally replied, a hint of reluctance in his voice. "I will accompany you to confront Ashford." "Thank you," Isadora breathed, her heart swelling with gratitude. It was a small victory, yet the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. As they broke away from the crowd, Clara clung to Isadora's arm, her small frame trembling. Isadora turned to her sister, a reassuring smile breaking through her earlier anxiety. "We will face this together, Clara. I promise you, we will not let them define us." Clara nodded, her faith in Isadora restoring a flicker of hope within her. With the Duke walking by their side, the air around them seemed to pulse with a newfound strength. The trio made their way toward the far end of the ballroom, where Lord Ashford held court, surrounded by a gaggle of admiring ladies and fawning gentlemen. Isadora's resolve hardened with each step. She would not allow her sister to be tarnished by baseless gossip. As they approached, the laughter of Lord Ashford echoed, a sound that cut through Isadora like ice. "Ah, Lady Isadora," he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery as he caught sight of her. "What brings you here? Surely you're not seeking gossip among us mere mortals." "I am seeking justice," Isadora replied, her voice steady, even as her heart raced. "And you, Lord Ashford, have a lot of explaining to do." The Duke stepped forward slightly, the protective stance sending a clear message that Isadora was not alone in this confrontation. The atmosphere thickened with tension, and Isadora could feel the eyes of the crowd turning toward them, the murmurs rising like a wave ready to crash. "Justice?" Lord Ashford chuckled, his expression unfazed. "Pray tell, what injustice do you believe has been done?" The challenge in his voice only steeled Isadora's resolve. "You have spread lies about my sister, and I will not allow your machinations to ruin her life. We demand an explanation." The laughter around them faded, replaced by a heavy silence. Isadora's heart beat in her ears as she stood before Lord Ashford, the weight of her sister's future resting on her shoulders. The stakes had never been higher, and she would fight for what was right. The Duke shifted beside her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes as he watched Isadora confront the man who had dared to tarnish their names. In that moment, the tension between them shifted. It was no longer just an argument about love or ambition, but a battle for honor and family. "Isadora," the Duke murmured, his voice low and urgent, "are you certain about this?" "More than ever," she replied, her gaze locked on Ashford, her heart a tumult of fear and determination. "This is only the beginning." The crowd held its breath, waiting for the next act in this unfolding drama, their lives entwined in a way none had anticipated. As Isadora and the Duke maneuvered through the crowd, Clara's anxiety manifested in her fidgeting fingers. The lively sounds of the ballroom felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the urgency of their plight. Isadora's heart raced, not just from the impending confrontation with Lord Ashford, but also from the realization that the Duke was now by her side, ready to face the storm together. "Isadora," he said, his voice low and steady, "are you certain this is the right course of action? Confronting Ashford could lead to further complications." She paused, meeting his gaze with a resolute expression. "If we don't stand up to him now, the rumors will only grow. I will not let my sister suffer for something she did not do." The Duke studied her, a flicker of admiration crossing his features. "Your courage is commendable, Lady Isadora, but bravery without strategy can lead to futile endeavors." Isadora felt the weight of his words, yet she could not let fear dictate her actions. "Then help me devise a strategy. We are stronger together, Your Grace." He nodded slowly, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his demeanor. "Very well, let's approach this tactically." As they approached the far end of the ballroom, a shadow passed over his face. "You know, I once faced a similar situation, years ago. A false rumor nearly cost me everything." Isadora turned to him, surprised by his openness. "What happened?" "There were whispers of dishonor surrounding my late father. I was just a boy, but the fear of being judged by society was paralyzing. I learned then that reputation is a fragile thing," he said, his voice laced with a bittersweet undertone. Isadora felt a pang of empathy. "You've carried that burden for so long." He shrugged, a facade of indifference masking the depth of his experience. "We all have our burdens, Isadora. Some are just heavier than others." Her heart ached for him, recognizing the loneliness hidden beneath his strong exterior. "We are not alone in this." Just then, Clara's small voice broke their moment. "Isadora, I'm scared. What if they don't listen?" Isadora knelt beside her sister, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "They will listen, Clara." With the Duke's support, we will make them hear the truth. The young girl nodded, though trepidation lingered in her eyes. As they neared Lord Ashford's group, Isadora felt the tension in the air thicken. She glanced back at the Duke, who stood close, his presence reassuring. "Ready?" he asked, his expression shifting to one of determination. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, steeling herself. With a deep breath, Isadora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the laughter and chatter. "Lord Ashford, may I have a word?" The man turned, a smirk playing on his lips as he recognized her. "Why, Lady Isadora, to what do I owe this unexpected delight?" "Enough of this charade," she asserted, her tone sharp. "I know you've been spreading lies about my sister. Your wager has caused her distress." A ripple of laughter erupted from a group of onlookers, but Isadora held her ground. "These rumors could ruin her life, Ashford. I demand you stop this madness at once." He feigned innocence, raising an eyebrow. "Rumors? I merely spoke of what I heard. Perhaps your sister should choose her companions more wisely." The Duke stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. "You will not tarnish the name of Lady Clara on the whims of your careless banter. If you have any decency, cease this nonsense immediately." The laughter died as the guests sensed the gravity of the confrontation. Isadora's heart swelled with a mixture of gratitude and admiration for the Duke, who stood tall beside her, unwavering. Lord Ashford's expression darkened, but he merely shrugged, dismissing their concerns. "You cannot silence the whispers of the town, my lord. They speak what they see." "With your encouragement," the Duke retorted, his voice slicing through the air like a dagger. "You are the source of this vile gossip." Isadora's breath hitched as she felt the eyes of the ballroom upon them, the tension palpable. "You will retract your statements, Ashford," she pressed, her voice trembling but resolute, "or I will ensure that every word you've said is reported to the authorities." At this, a murmur of shock rippled through the crowd. The Duke glanced at Isadora, pride shining in his eyes. "Perhaps it is time for you to reconsider your actions, Lord Ashford," he said, his tone firm yet measured. With a huff, Ashford crossed his arms, his bravado faltering. "Very well. I shall think on it. But one must be careful, Lady Isadora. Not all battles are won with words." As he turned away, a tension-filled silence enveloped the room. The guests exchanged glances, the weight of the moment settling heavily upon them. Isadora felt a rush of adrenaline, a maelstrom of emotion swirling within her. She had confronted a powerful man, but at what cost? The unspoken connection she felt with the Duke deepened. He had seen her courage and stood by her side, yet a lingering doubt gnawed at her. "What now?" Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "We wait," Isadora replied, her heart racing. "But I fear this is only the beginning." As they stepped away from the throng, she glanced at the Duke, their eyes locking in a moment that seemed to stretch infinitely. In that gaze, a silent understanding passed between them, an uncharted territory of shared loneliness and the promise of something more. Yet amidst the burgeoning connection, a flicker of misunderstanding lingered, a question left unspoken. Did he truly see her? Or was she merely a fleeting distraction in his complex world? As the night wore on, Isadora couldn't shake the feeling that their paths were entwined in ways yet to be revealed, and the dance they both participated in would soon lead to a reckoning neither could foresee. As Isadora faced Lord Ashford, the weight of the moment pressed on her chest like a heavy cloak. She could feel the heat of the Duke's presence beside her, a source of strength that clashed with the rising tide of uncertainty in her heart. "You think you can intimidate me, Lady Isadora?" Ashford sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your threats are as empty as your sister's reputation." The laughter that once echoed around them faded into a tense silence, the crowd now a sea of watchful faces. Isadora's resolve faltered for a heartbeat, but then she recalled Clara's frightened expression. "This isn't just about me, it's about Clara," she asserted, her voice gaining strength. You will not ruin her life for your amusement." "Ah, the innocent little sister," Ashford retorted, his eyes narrowing. "Perhaps it's time she learned the true nature of the company she keeps." With a flick of his wrist, he gestured dismissively, igniting murmurs among the onlookers. Isadora felt the Duke's hand brush against her back, a subtle gesture that sent warmth through her. "You will not speak of Lady Clara in such a manner," he declared with authority, stepping closer to confront Ashford. "Your words are nothing but cowardice disguised as wit." "Cowardice?" Ashford's smile was serpentine, his confidence unwavering. "You speak of honor while standing beside a woman who has failed to protect her sister. Perhaps you need to reevaluate who really holds power in this conversation." Isadora's heart raced, confusion swirling within her. She had meant to be strong, to defend her sister and confront the man who had dared to tarnish their names. But Ashford's taunts cut deep. "You think you know me? You don't understand anything about my family," she snapped, frustration igniting her words. The Duke's eyes flickered with concern as he took a step back, watching her with a mix of admiration and worry. "Isadora, remember—" "Enough!" she interrupted, her voice rising. "I cannot stand by while he continues to drag Clara's name through the mud. I won't let his words define us." In that moment, she felt a surge of defiance, a willingness to confront not only Ashford, but the very emotions churning within her. Facing the Duke, she saw a glimmer of something. Perhaps it was hope or understanding, but it compelled her forward. "You may think you hold the reins of this situation, Lord Ashford, but I will not allow you to dictate our lives. We deserve more than your petty games." The tension in the room crackled like a thunderstorm about to burst. The Duke's expression softened, and for a fleeting moment, Isadora saw the man beneath the title, a man burdened by expectations, yet fiercely protective of those he cared for. "Isadora, he began, but she was lost in her determination. "What will it take for you to stop this?" she demanded, her fists clenched. "Will you apologize? Will you retract your statements and restore Clara's honor?" Ashford's laughter rang out again, cruel and mocking. "An apology? How quaint! But why would I do that when the spectacle is so entertaining? I think I shall continue this little game for my own amusement." Isadora felt a pang of betrayal, the realization that Ashford was not merely a man to confront, but a symbol of the societal expectations they all faced, the very foundations of their world built on whispers and reputations. In that moment, clarity washed over her, and she turned to the Duke, desperation in her voice. "You must understand, this is not just for Clara anymore. It's about standing against the tide of falsehoods." The Duke's gaze locked onto hers, a silent understanding passing between them. "You're right, Isadora. This is about confronting not just Ashford, but the very fabric of our society. I cannot let you face this alone." His voice softened, revealing the deeper currents of his feelings. "I care for you, and I cannot bear the thought of you bearing this burden by yourself." Her heart skipped a beat, emotions surging as his words hung in the air. She had thought she was merely fighting for her sister's honor. Yet here was the Duke, exposing his own vulnerabilities. "You care for me?" she whispered, the weight of his confession crashing over her like a wave. "Yes," he replied, his eyes earnest and fierce. "I care for you more than I ever intended. But you must understand, I am not the solution to this conflict. We must face it together." Isadora's mind raced as she processed his confession. The reluctance she felt earlier began to dissolve, replaced by a flicker of hope. Perhaps together they could redefine their fates, not just for Clara, but for themselves as well. The room around them faded into insignificance as they stood together, united against the shadows of Ashford's machinations. "Then let us confront him, not just for Clara, but for us," she said, her voice firm with newfound determination. Ashford's sneer faltered, recognizing the unity that had formed between the two. "You think this alliance will shield you from the consequences? You are merely amplifying your disgrace," he spat. But Isadora felt the tide turning. With the Duke by her side, she stepped forward, ready to confront not only Ashford, but the societal chains that bound them both. The ballroom, once a place of laughter and whispers, now resonated with a palpable tension, the promise of change hanging in the air as they prepared to face their adversary together. "Let us show him the truth," Isadora declared, her heart racing, the finality of the moment swirling around them as they advanced, ready to defy the past and carve out a future free from the shackles of reputation. And as they moved, a new chapter began, not just for Clara, but for Isadora, the Duke, and the bond that had formed amidst the chaos. This confrontation marked the beginning of their true journey, one that would lead them to discover the depths of their feelings and the strength they held when united against the darkness. As the echoes of Lord Ashford's derision faded, the tension in the air shifted, transforming from an oppressive weight to a charged anticipation. Isadora stood tall, her heart pounding fiercely in her chest, a symphony of emotions swirling within her. The Duke, steadfast beside her, radiated an unspoken promise of support. She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "What now?" His gaze bore into hers, filled with a mix of admiration and determination. "We confront this together," he replied, his tone resolute. "But first, we must reclaim your sister's dignity." Isadora nodded, feeling emboldened by the Duke's unwavering presence. "Then let us do so." She turned back to Ashford, who stood smirking, his arrogance palpable. "You think you can toy with our lives without consequence?" she challenged, her voice steady now, echoing with newfound strength. "You will apologize to Clara, and you will cease this charade." "Such fire," Ashford mocked, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "And what if I refuse? What will you do then?" "Then I will ensure that every guest here knows the truth about your character," Isadora declared, her courage surging like a tide. "Your reputation is built on lies and manipulation, and I will not allow you to continue this charade." The crowd around them shifted, murmurs of agreement rippling through the guests, emboldened by her words. The Duke stepped forward, his voice low and commanding. "You've sown enough discord, Ashford. The time for your games is over." His presence loomed large as he faced the man who had brought chaos into their lives. "You will retract your statements about Lady Clara, or I will expose you for the coward you truly are." Ashford's laughter rang hollow, but the fear lurking behind his bravado was unmistakable. "You think you can intimidate me, Your Grace? You are nothing without your title." "Perhaps," the Duke replied, his stare unwavering. "But I am not alone." He pointed to Isadora, who stood resolute, her spirit unyielding. "You have underestimated her, and in doing so, you've revealed your own weakness." With a final glance at Ashford, Isadora felt the tide of the room shift. The guests, once passive observers, began to murmur in agreement, rallying behind her defiance. The atmosphere was electric, charged with the promise of change. "Enough of this," Ashford spat, his bravado crumbling. "You are both fools to think you can challenge me." But Isadora stepped forward, her heart racing with purpose. "We are not fools, Lord Ashford. We are women who will no longer be silenced by your threats and lies. We deserve respect and dignity." The silence that followed was deafening. And then, from the crowd, a voice spoke up. "She speaks the truth." It was a young woman, emboldened by Isadora's courage. "We have all suffered at the hands of men like you." The crowd began to echo her sentiment, voices rising in a chorus of support. Isadora's heart soared. This was not just her fight, but a collective stand against the societal norms that had kept them shackled. "Enough!" Ashford shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the wave of support surrounding Isadora. The Duke stood resolutely beside her, a pillar of strength as she faced their adversary. "Your time is up, Ashford," the Duke stated firmly. "You have lost this battle. Your actions will have consequences, and we will ensure that the truth prevails." As Ashford's face paled, Isadora felt a surge of triumph. She had faced her fears and emerged stronger, not just for herself, but for Clara and all the women who had been silenced. The confrontation marked a turning point, not just for Isadora and the Duke, but for the entire society that had long been bound by oppressive traditions. Ashford's retreat was imminent, and as he turned to leave, Isadora called out, "Remember this moment, Lord Ashford. It is the beginning of a new era." The crowd erupted in applause, and Isadora felt the warmth of the Duke's hand clasping hers, grounding her in the reality of their victory. "You were magnificent," he whispered, his voice low and filled with admiration. "Together we were," she replied, her heart swelling with emotion. In that moment, the barriers between them dissolved, revealing the depth of their connection. As the crowd began to disperse, Isadora turned to the Duke, her voice trembling with vulnerability. "What happens now?" He smiled softly, a warmth spreading through her. "Now we forge our own path. No more constraints of society. We pursue happiness on our own terms." Isadora felt a rush of relief and exhilaration. "Then let us do so, together." They stood amid the fading echoes of the ballroom, the promise of a new beginning unfolding before them. As they stepped into the future, hand in hand, Isadora knew that love could conquer all, and together they would rewrite their destinies. In the days that followed, Isadora and the Duke forged a new life, one where they embraced their vulnerabilities and supported each other in ways that transcended societal expectations. They became advocates for change, their love a beacon of hope for those who felt powerless. As the sun set over Ashcombe Manor, casting a warm glow on the world around them, Isadora whispered, "This is just the beginning." The Duke nodded, his eyes filled with promise. "Indeed, my dear Isadora. Together we will face whatever comes next." And with that, they stepped forward into their future, ready to embrace the unknown with open hearts, united in love and purpose.